All right, so what we're looking at is how you can add a project to source control management after you've created it. So for today's example, I'm going to use a new .NET MAUI project. So, and it really doesn't matter which kind of project, and even if it's an existing project, but I'm just starting off with a fresh one to simulate where you would start off with. So sample GitHub upload dot app. All right. Placing the solution and project in the same directory, you don't have to ever click that. That's fine. And then you create. So once this project is created and it's on the machine, Visual Studio, generally speaking, would have installed with a Git extension. So it would have put Git on your computer. Now, if you're not sure if you have Git, you can go to Tools in Visual Studio, go to Get Tools and Features, which will launch that original installer that you would have had or would have used to install Visual Studio initially. And once you have up this installer, give it a few seconds. Once you have up this installer, you can go over to individual components and you can search for Git. And you may see Git for Windows and it's not ticked. You can tick it, but as you can see, it's not ticked for me either, right? So that's not even a big requirement to accomplish what we're about to accomplish. So I'm just going to click that off. Now, in the bottom right hand corner, you would see a button that says Add to Source Control. You should see that button. And when you click it, you should also see Git as an option. So when you click Git, it's going to launch this dialog box, which allows you to create a new Git repository. And it's going to ask you if you want to push to GitHub as your DevOps, another remote, maybe Bitbucket or somewhere else, and or if you just want a local Git repository. For the purpose of this course, you'd want to use GitHub. It's free, it's easy to create an account, and at this point, if you click GitHub, you might be prompted to log into GitHub. So you can see here, they're saying re-enter your credentials. I just need to re-authenticate, and the authentication process will basically just launch this browser, ask you to verify your credentials, and when you click sign in, and if you have 2FA enabled, which I do, then you need to verify that. So let me just verify this on my phone. And once that is verified, it will tell you that you're being redirected and you have been successfully signed into Visual Studio. So then that prompt to re-enter or that unauthenticated state will now change for you. Generally speaking, you don't need to change anything up top. You can change the name of the repository if you want to. So this is what it will appear as on GitHub. You can give it a description if you want to. And then for the purpose of this course and this project, please don't make it private so that you can just share the link at will. If you make it private, then that means you have to invite me to the repository, which, we don't need that extra step. So you can just make it public and then you can just click create and push. When you click create and push, you may get some prompts. Do you want to continue? That's fine. Yes. I rarely get that prompt, so you might not get that prompt. But once I do create and push, what you'll notice being different now, a few things will change in the UI. One, that button to add to source control is no longer there. Right? So now it's showing you how many outgoing commits are there. And you see that that 2 just turned to 0 a while ago. So it just handled the push to GitHub on your behalf. You notice I still haven't gone to GitHub and I still haven't run a command to say git init and git add and this and that. All of that was handled by Visual Studio. And you'll see that we're on the master branch and so on. So you don't really have to, unless you're really getting into Git, you don't have to pay attention to these things. The most important thing to note though is that for this project, it's now in source control. Visual Studio knows it's in source control. So it's no longer prompting you to add to source control. In addition to that, you'll also notice that in your Solution Explorer, you're now ending up with these little padlocks, right? So these padlocks on the files indicate that the version of the file that is on your computer is in sync with the version that is on GitHub. The moment you make a modification and save that, that padlock turns into a red tick and it lets you know that it's pending an edit. So the file has been modified. And if you add a new file, you get a green plus sign. Ultimately, whatever changes you make as you go along, you'll have another area called Git Changes. Now, it may not be on the same area on your Visual Studio as it is on mine. So in that situation, you can go to View and you can simply select Git Changes. And wherever it opens up, Visual Studio, you can drag your panels anywhere you want them. So you drag it to the appropriate place for you. Because I'm sure most of you don't have your Solution Explorer to the left like I do. So you can always rearrange your panels as you need to. Now, once you're on Git Changes, you can enter a message. So enter a meaningful message, modify the main page, right? And then you would want to commit and sync. So you click that little button, that little downwards facing caret, and then you say commit all and sync. You could also do commit all and push. If it's you alone, push is fine. If you're in a team, sync is better, but either one is fine. So you can just do commit all and whatever. And once again, it will do a local commit, and then it will also handle the commit and push to GitHub. Now, just by way of preview, if I jump over to my GitHub account, let me just bring up an existing GitHub window I have. So if I go to my GitHub account and then look at my repositories, I will now see, all right, let me just do a search. I think I call it GitHub app. There it is, sample.github.upload.app. When I click that, then you'll see I just did all of that, right? Just now, I modified the main page. And that's pretty much how you get it onto GitHub. Now, if your machine crashes or something happens and you need to recover the source code, right? This is where GitHub and source control management in general really shines. Then all you have to do is log into your GitHub account on the brand new PC or the other PC, wherever it is. And then you can say code open with Visual Studio. That will now prompt you to open Visual Studio on your machine. So a fresh Visual Studio window is opening up for me, and it's going to appear in a few seconds. There we go. And it is now asking me where on this PC I want to place the repository and what do I want to call it. And then if I click clone, it will just download a copy of the source code to my PC and show me the little blue padlocks, and I'll be able to start coding and committing and pushing once again. Along the way, you might get prompts to authenticate and re-authenticate and so on. But the fact is that that's how easy it is to integrate your Visual Studio with GitHub. So, of course, if you run into any difficulties, do let me know along the way.